Hey there, Cancer. So this is a lovely week ahead, starting from the full moon in Aries, going all the way through to the third quarter moon phase, when the moon is in Cancer. Now, in this week, I really see us starting off from this fiery, full moon Aries energy, but then softening into wisdom as this time goes on. And one of the themes that's really coming up for me as I'm looking into this is the idea of permission. You know, are you still, like, what are you still waiting to do right now? Like, what are you waiting for permission to be able to work on? And so this is what I think I'm going to be talking about in this forecast. So it's from the 7th of October to the 13th. So it's one moon phase, you know, from the full moon to the third quarter. And I'm going to be looking at it from a Western tropical whole sign perspective. It's your ascendant forecast. And so hopefully I'm going to make it really real and really relevant, because I really like to see that this is a sort of check-in, a regular check-in. I'm starting them up again, where possibility astrology becomes the order of the day, you know, where astrology can help you feel good about yourself. That's my whole purpose here. So this isn't just astrology. This is permission to align with what's unfolding in you. That's my standpoint. And I've got a lovely question to get going with. But before I do that, I just want to start this really by saying hello and thank you to everybody who has supported me since this channel began, and who are supporting me within my memberships on School, where you get additional forecasts. So thank you so much. You help me do what I do. But anyway, this is my big question to you. And this is what I'm going to answer throughout this sort of 10-minute forecast. Where in my life do I need to stop waiting for permission and start acting from self-trust? So that's what I think this week is about, from full moon to the third quarter Cancer moon phase. So let's have a look. So here's the chart now. So you'll see it's got a Cancer starting point. This is a whole sign reading for a Cancer rising or a Cancer ascendant. Now, if you don't use whole sign charting, like when you look at your birth chart, if you see that you've got Cancer and Leo in the first house, then also check out Leo's forecast, because they will have some relevance in there for you as well. So these are the big movements from the full moon in Aries, and you'll see Aries is right up here and the sun's down here. This is where the moon is in your 10th house. This is a very, very visible place to have your full moon for sure. And then by the time we come to the third quarter moon, just before Venus comes into the sign of Libra, you'll see that the moon has moved from your 10th house right the way through to your first. So this is a very, I would say, a deeply personal part of your chart. Going from how you're feeling in terms of your image that you're putting out there, how people see you in the world. You know, are people seeing you as a leader? Do you have to make some big decisions right now? Because the moon up here is really saying that you want to be heard. And then as we're going through this week, you'll see that the moon is going into Taurus when it's in your 11th house. That's when you're going through a bit of a collaborative couple of days between the 8th and the 10th. And then as it goes into the sign of Gemini on the 10th until the 12th, you may well find that you're a little bit tired, a little bit contemplative, and actually needing to rest up. And that would be, if there were any times during this week ahead, I would say those would be the days to rest between the 10th and the 12th. And then once the moon goes into Cancer and is in your first house, I would say this is when things are starting to be really integrated. You know, you're starting to kind of say, here I am, look at what's changed with me in this last week. So what is special about this, I would say, over this next week, we've got Mercury going into an exact square with Pluto. That's happening on the 7th. That's on the day of the full moon. Now, these are really, really strong energies at the same time. So I will talk about this separately. We've also got Venus going into a sextile with Jupiter, and you'll see that that's happening from your first to the third house. To me, this is really darling little energy. You know, back in July, I think we had Jupiter and Venus in a conjunction, and I did put out a video about observing the Jupiter and Venus cycle. And so this particular, you know, if you were setting sail with some kind of important dream back in July. In fact, I'm just going to pause this and get the exact times for you, because this particular sextile is really one other step forwards from what was going on back in July. So just hold with me 1 second. It's August the 12th. So on August the 12th, you had Venus back in a conjunction with Jupiter in your first house. And so whatever you were creating for yourself as a new set point, a new dream, a new plan, with Venus and Jupiter, really, I think they were creating some kind of a real sort of feel-good plan, in fact, because they're the two benefics, they're the two luckiest planets that we're working with. And so whatever you were starting around August the 12th is now starting to show the first signs of things moving, the first signs of things growing. To me, this feels very exciting, and it's a good time to share your news in your local area, in your local community. So that to me is something really big around the 8th. And if you can't remember what you started back on August the 12th, it's still a good time to start something that feels good. In particular, something that is allowing you to do something really nice in your local community that also helps you to feel good as a person and really helps your self-image. I think that would be really quite beneficial. Now, on the 11th, we've also got Venus in an exact opposition to Saturn. Now, this is going to be potentially a day when you might want to take some time to yourself. Venus in opposition to Saturn can really show you where maybe you're not as good as you think, where you start to doubt yourself, where you start to really feel into that feeling of not being deserving enough, that sort of self-abandonment, and obviously if you have any of that inside you, which I know I do, and, I'm sure most people do, don't they? So that sort of sense of abandoning yourself because you probably learnt it from your parents, you learnt it from their their parents and grandparents and so on and so forth. I think a lot of us have struggled with, this sense of hopelessness. All of a sudden you just don't think that you're worthy enough. And so bearing this in mind, and the fact that this is showing up, around your local town, around your local community and around the people versus everything that's sort of out there, everything that's unknown. To me, it's suggesting that anywhere where you're encouraged to go out of your comfort zone, that's the thing that's bringing up your confidence issues. So avoid anything too foreign, anything that's too much of a stretch. Keep it plain and simple and keep it local, keep it known and understood. And in fact, from the time you listen to this on the 7th, it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually start recognizing where you really are cool, where you really are deserving, look at all the things that you've achieved, because that will stand you in good stead around the time of the Venus opposition Saturn. And if you start to feel that, remember, Louisa said this might happen, give yourself some. Well, here we go back to that original question, which is, where in my life do I need to stop waiting for permission and start acting from self-trust? Well, this is the ultimate in aspects that stop us working from self-trust, because we actually stop trusting ourselves. And so the more you can work on it from, the day of the full moon, the better off you'll be. It will pull you back into your body. I think the thing to recognize is the lie of it. Often when we feel that we've come out of alignment, when we recognize that something is difficult and it's reminding of us a time when maybe we felt isolated from authority, maybe we didn't feel supported by others, maybe we felt like people were judging us and bullying us, or those memories often carry a very strong signature. And I can only talk from my own position and my own perspective, where I know they have really carried into my adult persona for sure. But when these come up, I have to remind myself, this is a fleeting feeling. This isn't the truth of me. This is something that I sometimes carry and I sometimes go into and I sometimes let it run riot. And the more I get conscious of it, the easier it is for me to just say, oh, there we go. Yeah, there's that hidden wound. And so it's worth just knowing it may come up, being ready for it, and talking to it like you might be talking to your kid sister or your child, and loving it and saying, oh, bless you. Where did that come from? Don't take it seriously. I see you as you are, and you're absolutely more than enough. Now, when that's happening, that's actually happening when the moon is going through your 12th house. And this is always a time when we're a lot more sensitive. And, when we feel a little bit isolated, we're a little bit more reflective, and, we're very, very delicate during that time. So, just really look out for yourself. And then once the moon comes into the sign of Cancer on the 12th, you'll start to feel a little bit more like yourself, still emotional, because the moon in the first house is highly emotional, but it's seen, it's not lurking around in your unconscious mind as a kind of funny mood that you can't quite put your finger on. By the time it comes into the 12th, you'll be openly feeling things in such a way that other people can join you, not to have a pity party, but to join you and say, I really see you and I love you the way you are, So to me, I just think from the 12th, people can really see your heart, like really open, really out there, and in a really lovely and endearing way. Now, during this week, the sun is also in the 4th house, which is, in fact, if I just go to the next slide, you'll see that the sun is still in the 4th house, really showing that no matter what's going on, there is still this support at home. There is this feeling of love and support, and there is this desire to help you. And as we come into the 3rd quarter moon, just after Venus goes into the sign of Libra, and that's really restoring this sense of family trust, which I think is really important for somebody like you. So the last thing I just want to step back to, and that is, how you're coming into this week, and then answer that question. So the full moon itself, it is strong. And, at the time of the full moon, there's also this yod pointing towards Mercury, which is in your 5th house. It's also in the sign of Scorpio. To me, it just feels like you're passionately considering and thinking and getting ready to communicate about what you need to feel joy, what you need to feel a greater sense of intimacy. And at the time of this full moon in Aries, and you've got like Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, is also in your 5th house, really wanting to feel that sense of passion in life. And yet Mars and Mercury are in a square to Pluto. So to me, it's like so much churning feeling. What I really think is, whatever is coming up, recognize that we've got this Pluto, Jupiter, Mercury, Pluto, Jupiter, Mars, Pluto, Jupiter, and Chiron energy all sort of working in a square. And so, yeah, you're likely to be feeling a lot, but it's not the truth of what you are feeling. Like, this is momentary. Like, the moon will pass out of here. Mercury is going to be moving out of this square quite quickly. You'll see that by the time we get to the 13th, this part of the square wall has completely broken down. And so, yeah, whatever is going on and heating you up, that's the thing that's reminding you of where you're not good enough. And so it's all a lie. It's just what's playing out right now. And we are in this time of great polarity with a lot of confusion that's coming up for people. And I think when we're like that, and of course, you being a Cancerian ascendant, you'll be feeling it a lot more than others because you are so empathic. You might not know whether it's yours that you're feeling or you're just picking up on the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So I want to come back to this overarching question, because this was all the background research, and this question, where in my life do I need to stop waiting for permission and start acting from self-trust? Well, I really see that the sovereignty issue of this is really lying in yourself. So you need to, what I'm seeing is you're getting ready to give yourself permission to be exactly as you want to be. So it's not that you're asking permission to build a wall, you're not asking permission to go and get a new job or to change the way you're earning your money. You're what's showing up for you is needing you've almost been waiting for permission to be yourself, and is it okay for me to be myself? Is it okay for me to be sensitive? Is it okay for me to love people, want to draw them close? Is it okay for me to worry about the safety of my family? Is it okay for me to be the sort of Cancerian that sometimes does have very strong emotions and moods and can have 5 or 6 different moods in one day, like 4 seasons in one day? Is it okay for me to be like that? And you don't even have to ask that question anymore. We are in the times where you being your sovereign self is actually what we need, because in you being yourself, you're giving other people permission to be themselves. Now, Pluto is almost like the person we're seeking permission to be ourselves from. And Pluto is showing up in the 8th house. The 8th house is that place of all those ancestral codes, those ancestral rules that you may well have felt like you had to stick to, those old expectations, but they are old. That's the thing. They are old. They're playing out right now. And, the people that created those are long gone. They might go back 3 or 4 generations, and yet they've been sort of passed down and passed down. You don't need to do this anymore. So that's my thought about that question. But I had an extra one. If I believed I was enough, what new possibility would I allow myself to explore? And from that perspective, I would say, if you're giving yourself permission to be completely yourself, to honor your emotions, and to expect expansion for yourself, then here's where I would probably see it taking place. So this Saturn and Neptune up here, really sort of straddling between the 9th and the 10th. To me, this is allowing you to build something for yourself based on your expanded spiritual sense of being. To me, this is asking, can I bring down my spirituality into my personality? Can I bring in my appreciation of a much wider world, but bring it into my here and now? Which also kind of matches this Saturn opposition to Venus in the 3rd house, where it feels very safe to just be your narrative self, like be how your local community is expecting you to be, whereas it feels very, very different when you're outside of the usual rules. But to me, this is the thing that's showing your acceptance. It's like, when I feel free to bring my current awareness of what's going on in the world out there and bring it into my now reality, that's when I know I've given myself permission to be myself. So that's where I think it's at for you in this week ahead, Cancer. I hope that's been helpful in understanding yourself at a deeper level. And, if you want to go even deeper with this particular forecast, I've got membership on school. You go to school.com/feelgoodastrology. I've got 2 different memberships set up, one just for forecasts, one for forecasts and loads more astrological fun. But, with a forecast, with both of those, you would get Monday to Friday forecasts, where I also include all of the moon's movements, the squares that she makes, the oppositions, the conjunctions as she's going around, and how that might relate to you. So that's Monday to Friday. And I also do a relationship and connections forecast. And I also do an ambition, money, and career forecast every week. So if that would be helpful and, sort of ease you on this path back into your true alignment of feeling completely free to be yourself, then just check out the links below. But anyway, wishing you a really beautiful week ahead, and hopefully I'll catch you in a week's time with the next part of this story. Lots of love. Bye for now.